Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jeff Edwards for Barnyards and Backyards Live from UW Extension. We got to get these introductions in quick because I might freeze up. The internet is a little bit sketchy today for me. So joining me, as always, is Jeremiah Vardaman. Good morning, Jeremiah.
Good morning. I was kind of wondering if I'd have to do introductions too. So
you might have to do it all before the end of the program. Our guest today is Jacqueline Downey. Good morning, Jacqueline. Glad to have you with us.
Oh, good morning, and thanks for having me.
Jacqueline is the education programs manager for Audubon Rockies, and today, if you can't tell, we're talking about birds. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping things. If you're new to Zoom, if you have a question for us, take your mouse, scroll over your Zoom page, and at the bottom, there's either a Q&A button or a chat button. If you have a question, please enter it in that and hit the return, and one of us will pick it up and bring it forward to Jacqueline. If you are watching us live on Facebook, for those of you who can do that, just enter your question in the chat, and Jenny Thompson, our third partner in crime who keeps things running for us in Barnyards and Backyards Live, who you probably won't see but may occasionally hear, will pull those questions forward for us. So I think we're ready to go. So Jeremiah, I'm going to turn the program over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jacqueline, for joining us today. We really appreciate it on this frigid day. We're really glad to have all these participants in that. And please bring your questions forward. We want this to be a discussion and bring it for you. But let's get started, Jacqueline. What do we need to think about for our bird friends in the backyard?
Well, it is quite a lot. And 1 hour to get everyone prepared for their backyard friends is pretty ambitious. So everyone will have to bear with me. And I do have a lot of links. So I'm touching on a lot of different things, but there is more in-depth information out there. I'm going to share my screen.
Great. Well, maybe everybody can write quickly and we can get this all done in an hour.
Or put the links out on.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we will be sharing those links out. I didn't mean that. We will be putting those links up. Jenny will probably put those up in the comments and chat boxes. So grab those as they come through.
Yeah. All right. So it does seem like there may be a delay on my slideshow here. So just Jeremiah or Jeff or Jenny, just feel free to let me know. All right, so we are going to be talking about supporting our backyard wild birds. It is winter, and it seems like there's no one out there, or maybe it does, but there are going to be birds coming, and I know you all want to be ready, and you're thinking, what can I do in my backyards? Some of the questions you may have is, where do I begin? Do I need to be looking at bird feeders and bird houses and bird baths? And the answer is, you don't have to think about these things to begin with. These are things that are down the road. The step before that is really thinking about where do you live? What does your place look like? Asking yourself, if you're in town, what are you offering any sort of backyard birds that are coming to visit? Do you have just a lawn or maybe a porch or a balcony? Have you planted some plants? Maybe not really feeling like it's all that enticing, but you've got maybe some pollinator plants out there. Or have you gone out and you have just gone wild? You have a garden oasis. You have all your different plants for your pollinators. You've got your shrubs. You've got your trees. All the different levels and areas for the birds to enjoy. If that's where you're at, that's great. But I know that folks who get to that level are still looking for new things to do. So don't worry, we've got you covered. But also you could be a rural landowner. You may have a ranch land, in which case you probably have a lot of fencing. You've probably got a lot of out structures, outbuildings, a lot there for birds. Maybe you've got water features, maybe you've got a pond, and you can see this is not even a pond. It's like a little mud, puddle here.
It's a collection of water.
Everyone is so excited to see it. It is. It is.
It all counts though,
You
right?
know, you're going to get visited. It does. Yeah. You know, and it always amazes me, you know, some of these ephemeral springs that kind of come up, and it's almost like you know, the animals are waiting for it and they're ready to go and enjoy it. So,
So
and then,
before we move on, Jacqueline,
yeah,
a question on that. So yeah,
yeah,
we really need to focus on where we're living, right? Is it in
yeah.
town? We have small acreage, small space, large acreage, what? But no matter the size or scale, is diversity of that landscape always better? Is there a point where diversity is too much?
Well, there's never too much diversity, that's for sure. So taking this rural landscape here that you're looking at, so just this in itself is going to, you know, you can attract a certain number of birds to this sort of this little area here that I have showing. But let's just say that what they're actually looking out on is this water feature. And then what you can't see is to the left is this whole forested area. Now, if you've got that situation happening, you have got, you know, tenfold the number of bird species you could possibly attract. You know, going back to the other picture where you just had the lawn, you know, there was no diversity of plant life there. I mean, you're probably going to get a robin because they need to find those worms for their babies, but you're not going to get a lot of diversity. You may have some of these geese come walking by, but that's pretty much it.
It's
When
a
you start to
flyover
see,
space.
exactly, yeah, maybe it's just a resting spot. It's not on purpose that you get the birds there, right? They're not really looking for that. They are looking for that end picture, the picture where there's the diversity of plants for pollinators. There's, like I said, the shrubs, the trees. There is open space, but there's the little shrubby areas for those birds that like that. It really is. The more variety of habitat type in your backyard that you can provide, it's just going to be that much more rich and in diversity of birds.
And that diversity is probably going to be just as important vertically as it is horizontal in that landscape, correct?
Exactly. So taking this picture here in the middle with the little water puddle here, you know, we do have some geese here. You could attract some plovers. You could attract right there at the water. Going back where our little deer friend is there, in that shrub, you could get, you know, birds like chats or even like some ground birds like a sharp-tailed grouse, you know, depending on where you're at. And then up higher there in the tree, in the shrubs up there, you know, you could get warblers. So it's just the variety. It's just birds require different areas, not just types of plants, but yes, also where in, you know, horizontally, where are they, or vertically, where are they found? What are they looking for?
And always the LBJs, right? The little brown jobs or the little brown birds. So they're always seems to find their niches.
There's 20. Yeah, there's 20 hiding in there in the background there, waiting to frustrate you as in your identification.
Great. So now we can look at that, work on diversity. What's our next step?
So the next step is thinking about, you know, basic needs. So you've got, you know, got some areas there, and then you were looking for the fact that birds need food, right? Obviously, and the food, thinking about food is not only going to provide them with food, but it's also going to provide them with the habitat that they need, right? So the chokecherry tree is going to provide the fruit and berries, perhaps, but you know, or if you're someone who's looking for insects, what you're planting in your garden is really going to attract a type of insect that may be important for a type of bird. And this is where, Jenny, if you don't mind dropping in the first link to our Habitat Hero resource page. And on that website, on that page, is a host of information for planting native plants. And the really cool one is there's a native plants database where you enter in your zip code and it lets you know what type of birds you're likely to see in your area. And then what kind of plants those particular birds may like to have. And it also provides links on where you could buy seed or nurseries. And I have to tell you, Wyoming is not as robust for our native plant nurseries. But there are some Colorado ones. And if you know of places and they're not listed, please let me know and we can get that updated. So please check that out. It's just got a huge amount of resources, but I will kind of go over some of the basic things here. So the food group one that birds are going to need are these caterpillars, or the larval stages of insects. So important for birds. If you want to see birds in your backyard, and particularly if you want to provide nests or houses for your birds and you want them to nest, absolutely, you need to have so many larval stages of insects. All insects, you know, as many as you can to have the larval stages. And I know what you're thinking, especially you, Jeff. Insects, but you know, there is a bird to eat every larval insect for sure. So over 90% of all terrestrial birds feed their babies larval insects.
Well, I don't think all bugs are bad.
It's like baby food. It's squishy. Yeah, well, squishy, yummy, delicious larval insects. Is that what you had for breakfast today, Jeff?
I did not, no.
But high in protein, right?
What's that?
Is that right, Jeff? That the larval stages are usually high in protein, especially those grubs and caterpillars and worms.
Yep, they really are. They're a great food source for a lot of different wildlife.
Yeah, for sure. So then your question is, okay, great. How do I provide my bird? So I don't know if any of you have ever watched Mama Robin try to keep up with the earthworm needs of her babies, but it is exhausting to watch. So trees, not only are they going to be great for places where the birds can nest or they can, you know, perch, but they are going to be hosts to a variety of insects. And so here is it says caterpillar, but I just mean that largely as larval insects. But all of these trees, it's amazing to think that an oak is a host to over 534 different species of insect, or can be, I should say, has been shown to be. Just amazing diversity when it comes to trees. So when we're thinking about trees, it really is not just habitat, it is also food for those birds in the form of insects. And then also when we're thinking about planting some of these shrubs and trees for birds, also thinking about when they're blooming and the number of insects can be attracted to the flowers as well. And not just, you know, we're not just thinking about bees and you know, the flies and those sort of pollinator type insects, but also just the beetles and just the wide variety of insects that are attracted to a plant like this. Because, you know, we've got our robin who's hungry every second. We're also thinking about flickers, and I know that flickers are a sort of hot topic button when it comes to homeowners, because they can definitely inflict damage on your siding. Definitely happened to my home that I'm living in now before we moved in. So it is definitely an issue. But what are they trying to do? They're trying to excavate larval insects from trees. And you know what?
Right.
It can actually help the trees if they don't get too crazy. You know, it's at that balance. You don't want to have too many insects that are, or excuse me, too many flickers and other birds that are damaging trees. But at a certain level, they actually kind of help to make that tree healthier, to get rid of some of those tree pests. So thinking about things like that. We have a lot of aerial birds that stick around our houses. I'm sure some of you have seen the tree swallows. They're absolutely beautiful. They are voracious aerial insect eaters. So we're talking flies, we're talking mosquitoes, all the things that are swarming in the sky. These guys are just voracious predators.
Now,
Same thing with our phoebes. These are the ones.
Usually
Yep.
for me, Jacqueline, I see these typically around waterways or ponds or more of a riparian area with water. And I'm guessing that just because that drives a lot of those aerial insects. Is that always true?
You know, there is a swallow for every habitat in Wyoming. Definitely the tree swallows like to be around water. Um, but, you know, you got your barn swallows who are perfectly happy to be, you know, near your home or in areas like that. You know, you think about some of the cliff swallows that will be in underpasses, which may not be near water. And, you know, that's just a good spot for them. So
Jacqueline, do the tree swallows make nests out of mud like the other swallow species?
they do not. They're
Oh, okay.
excavators. So that's why these are one of the ones you probably may see around your home, especially if you put up birdhouses.
Hmm.
And then other insect eaters being our meadowlark and even sparrows. We think of sparrows being seed eaters, and they are, but they also during part of their life require adult and larval insects as well. So
You know, and a lot of times towards the end of the season, we see birds in amongst all the grasshoppers, and they're like, "Oh, I think I need something else to eat. I'm tired of eating you." So they do a good number on the grasshoppers, but they need a little diversity too.
they do. And I have to say, I live here on the ranch and we've got chickens here around our house. And then down the road just a little bit where my mother-in-law and my sister and brother-in-law live, they do not have chickens. And we up at our house, our chickens are such voracious little, you know, grasshopper eaters that I didn't really notice how much grasshoppers we had. Go down to their house and they are just like hitting up against the buildings, and it's just like, oh
Right.
my gosh, I need to bring these chickens down because they got to keep up with these.
Lease out your chickens.
Exactly. All right. So berries and fruits. Again, we're looking at trees and shrubs on this one, and it's not just, you know, oranges. Not going to happen here in Wyoming, but as far as providing food, fruits are important for a lot of birds, especially ones that overwinter and they persist in the winter. So right now, and this is why we'll see robins, this is why we'll see the waxwings still around here, is because we do have those sources of berries that have overwintered. Some options here would be things like sumac, the hackberry, and chokecherry, right? So chokecherries are such a great plant for Wyoming. It's, you know, so many different species of birds can benefit from having the chokecherries,
What
and
about
especially
pinyon and juniper berries, Jacqueline?
oh
Would
yeah,
they provide a good food source, and what type of bird might that feed?
yeah. So we're talking all of the sort of birds that stick around in the wintertime. So we've got our chickadees. Um, we have things like our Townsend solitaires, um, you know, all of those sort of birds that stick around in the wintertime, they really rely on having that source of seed, if that's the habitat that they're typically living in. And I'm sure you've heard stories of when some of these seeds or excuse me, berries or fruits and they overwinter and they kind of ferment, and then some birds kind of figure out that it's a party, and it actually can intoxicate them a little bit. But for the most part, it is solely to survive the winter and keep those fat stores up so they could survive.
Everybody loves a party.
That's right.
I really like parties. Um, so, Jacqueline, we got a question in from Amy. She asked, "What about Russian olive trees? Are those a useful tree, beneficial tree in terms of a food source as well as a habitat, of course?" But
Okay, well, yes, they can provide food and shelter. Absolutely. But when you have a Russian olive, um, and and I am not above having a Russian olive. My mother-in-law mother got a bunch of Russian olives back in the 50s, as many of the people did around here, and planted them. Um, and and so it is hard to get rid of them when you know that they do provide food and shelter. The fact is, however, that they will not provide as much food and shelter for the wide variety of actual native bird species. So what are you going to see on chokecherry? You're going to see robins who are generalists. You'll probably see cedar waxwings who are generalists. They would do just as well and even better to have the native plant species around, to have the junipers, to have the chokecherries. You know, it's a far better option for our native bird species. When you have things like Russian olives, anybody can feast on it. And if it takes over the habitat and the ability for our native plants to grow, then the species that need the actual native plant will not be able to flourish and survive. Case in point, so chokecherries, they can be a host for a lot of the tent caterpillars, right? So there's certain tent caterpillar species that really like chokecherries. And it just so happens that our mockingbird that is in Wyoming, that's what they love and that's what they like to feed. They actually have the ability to digest those specific tent caterpillars. They have that ability to do it. They've adapted to be able to do that. And if we suddenly have all just Russian olives, then we will not have the same number of mockingbirds in our state. And it is a declining species. So it's things like that.
Great. So we have a comment from Facebook. Mary says, I sprinkle blueberries in my spruce for my solitaire birds.
Oh.
And so I guess my question for you is to kind of broaden that comment into a question of, is it beneficial? Should we be thinking of putting like that, sprinkling fruit or hanging oranges in the tree or anything that way?
Yeah, I think so. It is a misconception that if you feed birds, then you will somehow, stop them from migrating, or that you'll get them, replaced.
You'll make them dependent upon you.
Yeah, and that it is simply not the case. You can. That is not, the studies have shown that is not what happens. Pretty much you're just providing them with treats, or perhaps you are helping them if they're going on their migration, and you're just kind of helping them out so they don't have to work so hard to find that food that they need. So that's not the case. There's some situations, we shouldn't be feeding bread to our ducks. That's not good for them. There are other things you can feed to your ducks. Seedless grapes is one. Sprinkling blueberries in your junipers, not an issue. Putting up oranges in your trees is not a problem. The only time it becomes a problem is if it becomes a problem. Are you attracting pests you don't want to attract? Then maybe you shouldn't do that anymore. Are you getting troublesome and aggressive turkeys in your yard now because you started, throwing out corn or whatever food? Then yeah, that's a problem.
Maybe bringing in some skunks or raccoons into the area.
Yeah.
So we have nesting bullocks, orioles around our property, and we will put out orange pieces for them in the spring, and they're very shy birds. They come up to the house and actually feed on them, and it's kind of fun to watch them.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, that's a good example of, you have those birds already because you have, what do you have, cottonwood in your?
Yeah.
Cottonwood. Yeah. So bullocks, orioles love to nest in cottonwoods, and they have those beautiful hanging nests. And so you are, just giving them a treat. If you had perhaps a ponderosa in your yard and you were trying to put up an orange for them, that may not work out for you. So it's really just that very thing. Do you have what they need? And then what can you do to keep them around or entice them a little bit? Treats.
Great.
All right. Okay, nectar. I know you know what's coming up next. Our hummingbird extravaganza. And I'll just note that Jenny, if you'll put up the articles for the Barnyards and Backyards magazine, Jenny's going to put up a link, and it has the page where there's a lot of bird articles. There's more detail about pollinators and plants for them. in there, but generally speaking, if you have the correct plants, you are likely to attract a hummingbird, and at the very least, perhaps butterflies and bees. So I think it's always a beneficial thing to do. I don't always get hummingbirds up here, and I have this container, and one day I went and I made sure I got all these new pollinator plants, and I put it out, and I am not exaggerating. The very next morning I am out there having a cup of coffee, and here comes a hummingbird. I've always go out on my deck in the spring and have coffee. I have never seen a hummingbird. The very next day I put out the container plant and there was a hummingbird. Haven't seen it since, but I'm just, there was a hummingbird, and that day I made its day and it made mine. And so I think that's
Did
what's
you get
important.
did you get a picture to prove it, Jacqueline?
Just in my mind.
What I see in these photos, Jacqueline, is it looks like hummingbirds tend to favor the long trumpet type flower shape. Is that true, or do they like all flowers, any flowers that produce a nectar?
No, well, they definitely are attracted to the reddish, the pinkish, the purplish flowers. And I mean, just looking at the anatomy, if you could show me a flower, I can show you the animal that pollinates it just by the shape of the flower. You've got this sort of tubular. It's this bright, brilliant color, and it's tubular. Definitely, you need to have, in order to access that nectar, you're going to need a long mechanism to get out that nectar. And you can see this calliope hummingbird has got a very long beak, and it's perfect for getting right in there. And there is an article that has matched the pollinator to the plant, and it talks a lot about, yes, what is the shape of the flower? If is it wide and disc-like, you might be more attracting beetle species that pollinate. Is it white? Then probably you're going to be attracting moths. It's something that in the nighttime is really attractive to moths because it's really bright. So yeah, it's a really kind of a fun way to think about. I mean, I implore all of you to go out and take a look at some of your flowers you've got growing and just kind of put yourself in the mind of a pollinator and think, okay, how would this be accessible to a pollinator? And chances are, it'll be right.
Great.
So this is that bergamot, which I just love. Grows wild in Wyoming, and you can buy a variety of different types as well. And it's the gift that keeps on giving because it smells great, I think, and it's pretty prolific when it gets going.
Yep.
Here's a penstemon. We got a lot of penstemons in Wyoming, and here again, this shape here.
There's a little bit of a lag, Jacqueline.
Oh.
And maybe it's just for me, but
Nope, I see it too.
It's
Okay.
just coming through.
Hasn't changed yet. There it is.
Another pollinator plant that gives you a lot of bang for your buck are penstemons. There's a wide variety of those. And again, this guy's got, when they're wide and big like this, all I can think about is what is the bee when I see penstemons, is especially when you see the teeny tiny, like the little blue-eyed Mary, it's like, oh my goodness, the tiny bee or even fly that has to pollinate this flower must be just tiny. But then when you see these giant ones, you think, oh gosh, this is made for a giant northern bumblebee or something. So it's just a really cool way to look at what you're providing in your garden besides just the beauty of it. All right, coming along now, nuts and seeds. This is another big group of food providing. And again, this one is good. You're talking about trees and shrubs typically, but also grasses and other types of plants here. So here we have our chickadee. I have no idea what this plant is, but I want to know what it is. Do either of you know? Any of you know?
That's a bit like sumac-ish.
Yeah, I don't recognize it. I'd need more detail maybe.
I just like, this is, chickadees to me are your, cuteness personified here. And then they have this little seed that's also a little fuzzy ball. It's like perfect match for each other.
Now, Jacqueline, are seeds and nuts, are those a fall, wintertime food source, or is it year round? How do I need to think of that?
It really depends. When we're talking about seeds, when it comes to flowers, I don't know if you've seen even like dandelions, when you think about when they're about to spread their seed and they have the little seed, you can see the seed and then you can see the little fluff. And I don't know if you've seen, but the birds will go around and they will just demolish those because they're just these nice little. So it doesn't have to be fall and winter, but they are great because they do persist into the fall and winter. So it's a great way to hold them over. But even in the springtime, the seed sources of these plants can really kind of see them through. This is a great one. Sunflowers, if you plant sunflowers, both native and non-native, you will get these guys for sure coming along to see them. But yeah, like I said, grasses are also, chock full of seed as well. Different birds will utilize them at times, and these also are around in the winter and the fall as well. So it just depends on what the bird is and when they're going to utilize. But big blue stem is a great option for birds. And then of course, cannot all of our conifers. There are birds that are out there just specialists on specific types of pine cones, like this crossbill here. Literally, they do have a crossbill. Their bill crosses, and that is so that they can access those seeds in the pines. So kind of a cool thing, and we talk about the white bark pine and I'm
And that other one.
losing this. I'm losing the bird species that does this. Oh my goodness. Anyway, they go around and they hide their seeds for later. They're actually responsible for, actually propagating the white bark pine, which is important to so many other animals, not just birds, but just all of the animals that it supports. So. All right, so now this brings us, Jenny wanted me to talk definitely about bird food and feeding them. Absolutely, we touched on the fruits and how you can, incorporate feeding fruit, especially for our fruit loving species. When it comes to seeds, I really you only need 2 in Wyoming, and it will really give you the widest variety of birds attracted to them. Number 1 is this black oil sunflower seed that's in this picture here. And there are a variety of bird feeders that can hold these, and you can get creative with them. But as you can see, it is simply, most of them are just sort of like a screen, and then it holds in the seeds. So yeah, these are black oil sunflower seeds, and most all of our birds in Wyoming like these, and they'll eat them. And the added benefit is sometimes you'll see in the store and they have these mixed bird foods. And I never, ever recommend those. Those are made for eastern forests, eastern bird feeders for our birds that are on the eastern side of the United States. For our western birds, this is the perfect one. What the birds will do with the other seeds, they don't like the little millet and some of those other seeds, they don't want those, and they literally get those out, and then they only eat these. So save yourself the pests that will accumulate from eating the ones that have gone onto the floor, mice, deer, whatever, what have you. If you want those things, then that's a great way to do it, is to buy a mixed bird seed. And there are of course always going to be exceptions, but if I was going to the store right now, I would tell you, you need to buy a black oil sunflower seed, and that's what you'll get. Put that in your yard, and it's a great start.
Well, and as those birds kick out other unwanted seeds, and if something else doesn't gobble it up, it becomes possibly a weed problem for you underneath that bird feeder. And so by doing this, offering what they will eat, you most likely won't have that seed perpetuate in your landscape if that's what you're not wanting.
Right, yeah. And most seed mixes do they do the heat treatment, so theoretically they're not supposed to germinate. That of course doesn't always happen. And I've definitely had sunflowers grow under my feeder before. Not very often, but it definitely does happen. And especially if you get some sort of lower quality bird seeds, then that can happen a little bit more too.
We have a comment, Jacqueline, from Facebook.
Yeah.
Jody says, Rosie finches love my grass haystack in early spring when we still have snow cover. And so even those natural or native feed sources, another seed stock that you can have in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that a lot of people overlook grasses as food for birds and not
I
just.
definitely do.
Yeah.
I don't ever think about grasses going to seed for birds.
No, it's not on top of my brain either.
So the other really kind of popular one I recommend is this Niger thistle seed. And I just learned that maybe perhaps it's not an actual thistle. In any event, it is labeled Niger thistle seed, and it is a little bit more expensive. It is, but it will also attract most of our birds that we have in Wyoming. And you can buy these really sort of cheap sock feeders to put them in, and you can get some fancier ones. I will say that these sock feeders are more likely to be mobbed by our larger birds, the ones that come and you don't like, and they'll just tear it open. It'll be gone. So and bringing us to the point of these mob birds that will do this, you simply have to just remove your feeders until they are gone, and then you can bring them back out, and then you can have your nice orderly birds that will eat in a quantity that you find acceptable and that will meet your pocketbook. Yeah, there's a variety of things, of course, you can do, but the number one thing is to just take them away. Providing, you can provide screens or chicken wire around your bird feeders so that these little guys can get in. There's such a huge variety on the market of bird feeders. So if you are having a constant problem, you can always look online, and it'll be simple. And even places like your big box home and garden type stores will have some variety. And if nothing else, they will have the chicken wire that you can get crafty with as well.
Jacqueline, can you repeat the thistle name again?
Niger.
Yeah, Niger. It's Nyjer.
Thank you. That was a question, just making sure that they understood correctly. And then in terms of what you're talking about with the mob birds that come into these feeders, can you give us an example of one or two of those?
Oh yeah, a lot of the blackbirds. So our grackles are actually, our blackbirds, the red-winged blackbirds, starlings, house sparrows will do this. What else?
That's probably good enough, but yeah, they're
like your yellow-headed blackbirds.
Yep.
But they fly in
Yeah, and
we have magpies.
I do have again, magpies. Yeah. I do have an article for the Barnyards and Backyards that is on the link that Jenny provided in the comment section on how to discourage those big bossy birds. As simple as, again, do not feed the mixes of seed, for one. You can provide the net or the cages around them, but get rid of your feeders for just a week, and they'll move on. Even a couple days, they'll move along, and then you can put them back out again.
Jacqueline, last spring we had the Niger feeders out at our place, and gosh, it sure entertained us with all the goldfinches and stuff that came up. Since we were kind of a bit locked down, having our kid watch them with us, and we were identifying them, and it sure just made the spring go by.
Oh, good!
Really nice.
I'm so glad to hear that.
So what's next then, Jacqueline? We've touched on a lot of the feeder groups. Is there any other food sources we need to put out, or anything else we need to talk about that before we move on?
Well, we can do these suet feeders. These will attract our winter birds, like our nuthatches. We have red-breasted nuthatches. We have pygmy nuthatches. In Wyoming, our chickadees love these. You know, a lot of our winter birds, our woodpecker species like them. So if you had those 3 feeders out, you had like this winter right now, if you went out and you put a suet feeder, I would suggest near a pine tree. And then you put out your thistle and your sunflower seed feeders out. You would just have a wide variety of really cool bird species come out, typically. If you don't, this is where I go back to take a look around. Are you providing, you know, the plants and trees and shrubs that these birds really need? All right. Lastly, I was just going to talk on homes for birds. Right now, we are, it's cold out and we're probably not getting out too much. If you're looking for projects for this winter, and Jenny is going to put in the link, a website that has a wide variety of bird nest boxes. But this is a great thing to think of too. If you just put up a random box, who knows what you'll find, but you can be really specific and about which bird you're trying to attract with which box. So this is a nest box, and they all have a very similar sort of structure. But what changes is, where are you putting it? Is it high? Is it near a tree? Is it near the water? How big is the hole? How big is it? These are all questions that certainly a bird is taking into account. And so if you're going to put up a birdhouse and you just go out and buy any one, I would say stop first and just figure out what bird are you trying to attract. And 100%, you can just put out a birdhouse and just see what comes. It's a fun experiment.
Possibly nothing, ever.
Possibly nothing. Probably though something for sure. So that house, we got these bluebirds, mountain bluebirds. These guys, I am so excited. I feel like I saw one last week, and it's a little early. They usually wait until the end of February to come. The male comes first, and he kind of scouts out the area, and then the female comes. Of course, the female's the little bit lighter colored brownish one with a little bit of blue feathers in there. But these guys, especially if you are one of these landowners that falls into the rural category, this is perfect. Put this on a fence post, and you will find a mountain bluebird will come to it, pretty sure. So just like this, you know, you've got your fence. You know, they say you should put it 300 feet apart. I say you can put them closer, because if you are to get other bird species like your tree swallows, then you may want more, because they get really competitive. And if you want to stop that competition and you don't want them to kill each other, because they will do that, then you probably want to have more options for them. So that's just a simple bluebird house. These are the ones you can find. I'm showing 2 that you can find in stores, so you don't have to be a carpenter. You can definitely find bluebird boxes in the store and online very easily. The next one, and this is the challenge for those of you who live more in town, and especially if you've got shrubs and trees around. House wrens love to be, you know, in your gardens and in your sort of shrubby areas. They're just fun birds. They are very gregarious. They are always they're noisy. I will say that. I had a house wrens that nested near my window in the tree that's near my window, and they will let you know they're there. They have a lot to say. But the cool thing about these guys is that they'll pretty much build anywhere, and so you can really be creative about the house that you choose for them. In fact, you could put an old cowboy hat or a cowboy boot out there, and they will use that if they're around and they're looking for something. So they're kind of a cool thing. They are cute, but they are very competitive, and they will definitely break the shells of other eggs and if they want to be there. So, and the other two that will also readily use those two houses I just showed are the tree swallow and the chickadee. Those are the two. So the small little wren house chickadees will kind of use those, and then tree swallows will also use the bluebird houses pretty readily. And then just kind of another really cool thing you can do, especially if you've got outbuildings, if you've got barns, if you've got, sheds, put up one of these sort of platform nests, and you will see robins like these. Definitely these Say's phoebes, which are one of my favorites. They will utilize them. They're just a kind of a neat thing to see. They don't need you, right? These birds, they never need you. They're going to build where they want to build, but you can be a little bit more intentional about maybe where you want them. If you've got, robins, or you've got some phoebes that are always, trying to nest on your farm machinery, or, above your door, or whatever it is, you can give them a little slight nudge like this. Lastly, one of the last ones here is of these, the larger nest boxes. You can put one near the water, and not all of us have wood ducks in Wyoming, but other ducks will nest in the boxes. And then things like our mergansers over here. I mean, who can just say no to these mergansers taking a little ride on their mama's back? I've seen these before, and every time I see them, they make me so happy when I see them on the back. And this is also, I don't know if you guys saw, there was a viral video of a merganser mom, and she had like 80 chicks behind her. They were not all hers, but she was kind of taking them for a ride, and it was just like, oh my goodness, so fun. So
Great, Jacqueline. We got a couple questions, and I don't want to derail you off your
no.
Thoughts or what you're talking about, but we have a couple questions on pests that rob nests, if you will. So the first question comes in. Let me find it here. I have let's see. Nope, that one. There's bull snakes that seem to be robbing the nest in the top of like high pole barn or to trees or bushes or anything like that. It's kind of a comment, but just a question. How can you protect those houses or those nests from like a bull snake?
Yeah, it is. I have witnessed this firsthand with the robin nest that my family was watching so lovingly, and actually got to see the bull snake just as he was finishing up his meal. And it's just like, oh, I'm so happy that the snake got to have his food, and I'm sure that's great. But it's not great when it's a family thing you're watching, right? What you can do is you can get, like you see the cones that are on dogs' necks.
Cone of shame.
Yes, yep, cone of shame. But upside down and around where the pole is, it works really well if it's a pole. If it's a tree trunk, it can be a little bit harder. But definitely that, especially if once the nestlings start to be really vocal, that's what signals the snake, right? So you can do that. The other thing that we did after this misadventure, we took barbed wire and we wrapped it loosely around the base of the bush that it was on, and that helps as well. You can use barbed wire. You don't want to do the barbed wire really tight, because of course as the tree or the shrub or whatever grows, it will dig into it. But you can do it kind of loosely, and that will help as well.
Great. So another question that we have is they have crows which steal from the robin's eggs and etc. Should they terminate the crows? Is there other options? Just throwing that out there of what do we do to try and protect the robins from the crows in the area?
Yeah. So I believe crows are they on the Migratory Bird Treaty Act protection? I'm not sure on that one. I have to think. I mean, there are birds who are definitely not protected, and I don't know if crows are on that list or not. So I don't want you to get in trouble. So I would definitely check first with that. But I will say robins are certainly not a bird of concern. They are very prolific. Their numbers are really high in the whole United States, not just Wyoming. So it is the natural course of things. Eggs are food as well. And not every clutch of eggs is going to survive. And that brings me to another point is when you're going through this whole process and you have your nest and you're watching these, ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to watch the stages of the birds as they grow up, to when they have no feathers, they start to get little feathers, they become really vocal. And then when they start to decide they want to try and fly. And this is the part where I get so many questions and I get a lot of calls about. There's a baby bird and it's out of its nest. What do I do? And most times you do nothing. This is just the normal course of things. Sadly, not all birds that are trying to learn to fly survive. And that's just kind of the way that is. But you can definitely, if you feel like it's in danger, you can put the bird close to the nest if you feel like it's in danger. If something happened, like the nest flew out, you can certainly, attach the nest back to the tree in some way. Sometimes you can use like a little basket and put the baby birds or the eggs back in there and see if that helps. You can do these things. It's not this idea that if you touch the bird won't come back. I think that came from the idea that maybe the birds did not survive after that. And that was just probably what was going to happen anyway. You can certainly, move the birds in order to make them safe. So that's okay to do. Yeah.
Great. Another question is on our nest boxes and houses that we put up, do we need to clean those nests out every winter to bring those birds back again next year? Will the birds do that tidying up the next spring? How do we handle those bird boxes?
Absolutely. If you're going to go to the trouble of putting up birdhouses, you are going to have to do some maintenance, and you're going to have to watch it for predators, for sure. If you've got, a lot of cats or, a lot of things out there that are consistently attacking your birds, you probably want to take your birdhouses down. That said, you can do the things like I mentioned, putting the cones on. You can try all these different things to try and keep them safe. But it is something to keep in mind that not everyone should have a birdhouse. But if you do want to make sure that you keep it clean. And you can check them. You can, especially a lot of the birdhouses have this ability where you can lift up a flap, and that is okay. And I highly, as long as you're not being really invasive, this is a learning thing for both of you. You can go out there, show your kids. Watching the birds go through their whole process of growing up is really kind of fun. And it is a neat thing that you can do. And if you have birdhouses and you actually do get birds out there, it's really a fun thing. You can keep records. You can put your data onto different, apps that keep track of these things, like iNaturalist or eBird. Those are just really great ways to keep track and really to be part of a community science project. There are specific ones. If you have a kestrel house or nest box, you can, that's a whole project you can be involved in. Just so many different things you can do when you have and are lucky enough to attract birds to your boxes.
Great. Do you have any comments about gourd bird houses?
About what?
Gourd bird houses? Bird houses made out of a gourd.
Yes. I have made these myself. It's kind of I don't know if it was just the way I did. It was kind of a gross process when you're waiting for so a gourd is just, so in the fall, when you are in the store and you see, or even in your garden, and you get the squashes and they have the really kind of cool shapes, they will actually naturally desiccate. And what you're left with is just the shell. And they're really great. And you can definitely use those for birdhouses. I'm going to warn you that it can be a gross process. You want to kind of wipe the outside when you get them. Wipe the outside with an alcohol pad, and that will help. Otherwise, they grow this fungus on the outside while they're desiccating sometimes if you don't do that, and it can be kind of gross process. But and then you simply just drill a hole, and you can hang especially if you make sure you save the little stem, then you can use that to attach. And especially your little birds like your wrens, really kind of like those, your house finches, they will use those. So absolutely use your boards.
Great. So another question we have is, how can you keep pigeons from eating cat food that you put out for your cats, but also other seeds that you put out for winter birds? Any suggestions there?
Well, I think putting your cat food out without protection is just asking for trouble from not just pigeons, but from raccoons. I don't know where that person lives, but it could bears even. So I would suggest maybe not putting out more food than the cat can eat in one sitting. That might help. And then just like I said, when you are starting to feed, you really are opening yourself up for all manner of wildlife to, reap your bounty you're providing. So you do have to be kind of choosy with how and when and how much you're providing. If you're having a problem with pigeons, then you need to just stop feeding everything altogether. Again, you're not going to provide harm for the birds that have been visiting that you do want. They'll go somewhere else, and they will come back when you provide feeders again. But the best thing to do if you're trying to discourage something you don't want there is to stop the food. The food is what's bringing them in, and the food, if you stop providing it, will make them go away.
Great. How about, so next question we have is, we have problems with birds crashing into our windows. How can we prevent this, or is there anything that can be done?
Yes, there are a variety of sort of window treatments that you can use. Easiest, you can put up like, stained glass little trinkets in your windows. You can put stickers. You can make, using paper, you can make silhouettes of birds. You can, if you don't like any of that kind of clutter in your window, there are stickers that are clear that you can put that you can't see so well, but the birds can definitely see, and they're kind of like these vertical lines. You can get creative and put fishing line, if it's a kind of diagonally, and then you can put things on the fishing line. I've seen people do feathers, or even if it's a real problem, like little streamer type things on there. And you may not need to keep it on there forever, but it may, if it's a situation that's happening, then that'll quickly stop that from happening. But again, that's one of those things you can go online and you can research. There's a new product that I wish I could think of what it was called, but is really nice. It's like a little tape, and you simply just kind of put it on, and it's really nice. So yeah, there's a lot of variety of options out there, but simply just putting something in the window will help.
Basically adding structure to that window that is visible to the bird is what you're attempting to do?
Yeah, yep. I don't know if any of you have ever walked straight into a sliding glass door, but it's kind of painful, and it's easy to do. You don't notice it. However, if your windows are, or it's dirty, or you have something, they're sort of at eye level, it is so much less likely that you're going to do that. But
it definitely gets your attention.
I can't say I've done that, but my life is so young, it may happen. So that's all the questions I have, Jenny. Do you have anything on your end, Jeff? Or that
I don't see any additional ones. I don't know if Jenny has any from Facebook.
I think we got them all.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Any other last thoughts or comments to leave us with, Jacqueline?
Yes. So this weekend is the Great Backyard Bird Count, and Jenny's going to put that link on how to participate in that event in the chat box. It's So it's this weekend. It's today, it's tomorrow, Sunday, and Monday. And if you want to go out for as little as 15 minutes, anywhere, backyard, look out your window, look out your office window, and just sort of record what you're seeing. And that's enough. You just want to do that and you don't want to share that information, that's fine. But you also can participate by going onto the website or participating by putting your data into eBird. It's a really kind of fun thing to do. You can do it for as long as you want, or as I said, as little as 15 minutes over the whole weekend.
Make sure you bundle up.
Just counting. Yeah, I know this happened. It's like the Christmas bird count. It was so cold, and I was trying to do this in Gillette, and I had my kids with me. And it's like, if you want to discourage kids from liking bird watching, take them in the middle of the winter when it's freezing and there's no birds to be seen. So.
Exactly.
Also, I want to say that there are native plant workshops that are taking place now in March through April that Habitat Hero is putting on with Colorado State University. You don't have to be in Colorado, but you get these coupons to order native plants that you can plant in your backyard. So $10 for free. That's kind of an incentive, and the university is doing a research project on how and why it is that people choose to plant native and how they can be successful in their own backyard and gardens. So Jenny has the event page link that she'll also put in there. And then if you feel like your birding skills are lacking, my friend Zach is doing a free webinar on April 15th, Birding 101. And he's great. And I think if you participate, you'll have a great time.
That is awesome, Jacqueline. Thank you so much. What great opportunities, especially this weekend, this time of year. I don't think I'm going to be going outside and doing any bird counting, but I probably do it from the window of the house. So
yeah, that's my attitude too.
I'm just not that brave to stand out for too long a time period in sub-zero temperatures. So, but Jacqueline, so thank you so much for your time and bringing us this wonderful information. I had a great time and I've learned quite a bit, and I am eager to incorporate this on my own property. And the activities, I never think of those. And with my young kids, that's going to be a great thing to take to them and say, hey, let's build a birdhouse, or hey, let's get involved in this bird count in our backyard, right? We don't have to really go anywhere. So what a perfect time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jacqueline.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so to wrap up our show, we just want to say thank you to our participants who joined us, all the comments, all the questions. It was a great discussion today. Hopefully it was beneficial to you. For future shows or shows like this one, all shows, we're recording them. Please check out the Barnyards and Backyards website. We post all shows that have been recorded up onto that website for your use and other people's use later. If you want to know what's coming up, we have a great lineup of shows coming this spring all the way through the end of April. And so check back in with us. We're going to be meeting every Friday, 10 a.m. Join us either on Facebook Live like you did, or join us here on Zoom. We really appreciate it. We're doing this for you. The other thing is, I think, Jenny, do you have, oh, great. Yep. And they have a great resource there on the Barnyards and Backyards website for habitat, birds in specific, but other wildlife as well. So check that out. It's a great treasure trove on that website. Jenny, do you have the Rocky Mountain Audubon? There you go. So to connect with Jacqueline or the Rocky Mountain Audubon Society, please check them out. Here's their website. You want to see, Jenny provide those great links for you if you want to see what activities they have going on to help you with your birding adventures. So thank you so much again, Jacqueline. The last thing we have is just want feedback from everyone. So we do this program for you, the listener. So we have provided a link in the comments or in the chat box. So please take a few minutes, a very quick survey, just a few click, maybe a type here and there, and you're done. So very fast. We love the feedback. That's what steers and guides this show to hopefully make it more applicable and beneficial for you and your use. But with that, I'm going to sign off and say thank you. Thank you, Jeff and Jenny. Always good working with you and seeing you guys. Jacqueline, thank you so much for your time. And everybody have a great weekend. Stay warm.
Yes.
All right.
Be covered.
Good night.